All right, what's up, Mama? We back. It's been a long time. Back on TikTok.
Hello, my Facebook friends. I love y'all. I miss y'all.
It's TikTok, Mama.
Yeah, my TikTok friends.
Man, okay, so we was just in here talking, and you said you seen a man that looked like he was from a different century or a different time period.
This happened back in I think this happened back in 1964. Yeah, I don't know how. I know I was young at the time, but he looked like like something out of the Bible days. I don't know if I told this story or not, but he looked like he was out of the Bible days. Like he had like in the Bible days they be having like Abraham and them. He had this brown, grayish brown mixed hair.
It was long,
But it was long, and he had like beard. It's this beard, but the thing about it, he had a right arm. He had a right arm. He was missing a left arm, and he had a left leg, and he was missing a right leg.
What?
And I don't know where this man came from, but he wasn't dressed like like in the '60s. How people in the '60s look. But this man had on like back in the day, like the sheep stuff, like a garment, but it was like it was made out of sheep wool, and he had these old crutches, like back in the Bible days. And so that day, me and my sister, I'll never get me and my sister Ben, and we had went to the store, and he was sitting in front of the store in the grass. He was just sitting there.
He was just sitting in the grass?
Yeah, he didn't speak. But we looked at him. I looked at my sister, and we thought it was like somebody making a movie or something. I just put him there or something. So we went on in the store, and we got our stuff that we were going to get.
Wait, so y'all saw him on the way going into the store and going inside the store?
Going to the store, and he was just sitting out there in front of the store. On the grass, he had no blanket or nothing, but he had I could see these two crutches that he had, and they was like homemade stuff crutches, and he was just sitting there, and he wasn't saying nothing. He was just looking around, just looking like.
What was the crutches made out of? It was like wood.
It was wood.
Some wood crutches, like a walker, or was it like a stick? Or
it was like back in the old days, they make the crutches.
Oh,
the
okay.
top part and,
yeah.
And, the cup down to the thing in the middle. And,
okay.
And so me and my sister, we got our stuff, and we came over out the store, and we just stood in front of him. We moved on down a little, and we were still looking at him, and he was just sitting there, and he was looking around, just.
You sure it wasn't?
And I never forget, it was on a Friday. It was on a Friday when we saw this man.
You sure it wasn't a homeless man?
No, homeless people. I know how homeless people look.
Okay.
And I know the stuff that homeless people clothes. This man had no pants on. There wasn't pants. They were like a little garment with a belt tied around with a rope.
It was oh yeah, that's different.
And he was just sitting on the ground, and he was just looking. And so we went home, we told my mama and daddy, they all came. First they didn't believe us though. And I said, but y'all got to come see this man. He's like he out the Bible. Back in Jesus Christ days. So my mom and daddy, they came, and cause I never forget my daddy's sister had came into town. And we was all, they all came, and everybody was looking. And now at this time, a lot of people that came now, they looking at him, they talking to him and like asking him, where you from, sir? What's your name, sir? And he wouldn't say nothing. He just looking around. And he stayed there for like a whole week.
He was in the same spot?
The man didn't move, sat there for a whole, and because now at this time I'm making it my business to go up to the store now just to see.
Right.
Yeah, but I always take my sister with me though. And so sometimes I would go up there, and I would just, we didn't even have money. And I would just go up there and look at him, and I'd be talking to him, but he never would talk. And so now, I never forget, it was on a Wednesday or Thursday, the news crew had came. the news crew, they had the news crew up there. And the news people, they was talking to him and stuff, and he wouldn't say nothing. People they would feed him. They would give him food, but he just wouldn't move. They asked him where he from. How did you get here? I don't know. Maybe he couldn't speak the language. Maybe he was Hebrew. I don't know what he was, but he didn't look like he was
from that time period.
He was from our time period. And he sat there. He would eat the food that they would give him, but he never would talk. And they give him water, they give him food, and like I said, when the news crew people came, they was talking to him, microphone. We all out there, all us around him. He just looking around and just
what? And
when I never forget. And when that Friday came, because me and my sister came, we used to go up there just about every day, and we didn't see him no more. He was gone. I don't know. We don't even have the news people, because he was all in the news. They don't even know, like they were saying, we don't know how he came and we don't know how he left. I mean, they searched for this man, they couldn't find him. He was gone. And that was just like a mystery to me. I mean, because my mom and daddy kept saying, we don't, maybe he's a time traveler. We don't know.
And I do think it's true.
Travelers, but I think there are time travelers, but but at that time, I don't know where this man came from. He only had a right arm, and he had a left leg.
So he didn't have no right leg, and he didn't have no left arm.
Yeah.
What?
That was puzzling everybody in town. They want to know how, and he got crutches. What he doing with crutches, and how he get there?
Right.
How you gonna walk on a crutch? I mean, I understand. If you ain't got no arm on this side, I don't know. But he sat there and couldn't nobody get him to move. He wouldn't move. Thank God it didn't rain. But
wow, the mystery man.
So this guy says that his uncle ran over a witch and that he's gonna share the story even though he knows that no one is going to believe him. If I was the witch and I found out that you're telling my story of how I got run over, I'd be so mad. That's embarrassing as fuck. Like, don't be saying that shit. So he says that 16 years ago they lived in a really small town in Oaxaca. He explains that his mom would make money making homemade tortillas and that she would then have him and his sister go and deliver them to the people in the town. On one occasion, they were going to deliver tortillas to a house that they had never delivered to. When they get there, they realize that it was a really big house, but it wasn't very well taken care of. And they started knocking on the door, but nobody was coming out. So they were like banging on the door so that somebody would hear them. After a while, some old lady did eventually open the door, but that she looked really raggedy, like her clothes was all torn up, she was dirty, and that she had some sort of like face covering. She made them go into her house because she had forgotten her little coin purse in the kitchen. When they were waiting for this lady to open the door, they noticed that she had like some sort of bonfire area, and it was like ashes, but there was like some sort of cross made from like chicken feet in there. He said that him and his sister looked at each other and they thought that was weird as fuck, but obviously they didn't want to ask the old lady why that was there. They got the money from the old lady and they went to deliver the rest of the tortillas, and then they made their way home. Even when they got home, they never mentioned that like chicken feet crossed to their mom or anything like that. So a few days passed, and he says that back in those days his uncle was working as a taxi man, but he would only do rides from the town to the beach. He would usually start working around 6 in the morning and then he wouldn't stop working until 11 p.m. at night. So in one of those nights where he was making his way back home, it was already 11 p.m. He said that he hit a curve, and when he hit that curve, he noticed that there was a big bird that was flying really low and he couldn't stop. He ends up hitting it and the bird hits the windshield of his car. This did make him lose control of his car, but thankfully they weren't like on a cliff edge, so he just went off the road a little bit, but his car was okay. He gets out of his car and he starts looking for this big bird, and that's where he sees that it's a black turkey and it is on the street. When he sees that the turkey is pretty much dead, he thinks to himself that maybe his sister could make that turkey into mole and that they can eat really good the next day. So he ends up taking his shirt off, putting it over that turkey. He picks the turkey up, puts it in the back of his car, and he's like, I'm gonna eat good tomorrow. So he makes his way back home. Side note, I did not know they made like turkey mole. Should try it. Maybe not after this story. So the following morning around breakfast time, the uncle goes to their house like he always did to have breakfast with them. In that moment is when he starts telling his sister about what happened that night, how he hit a turkey, and that hopefully she can make it into mole, and she agreed. The guy telling the story says that they all went to get the turkey. It was him, his sister, the mom, the uncle, and they went to the back of the uncle's car. When the uncle opened up the trunk, they were all in shock. What they saw wasn't a turkey. It was a naked old lady, half covered by like the uncle's shirt, and it was the same old lady that they had delivered tortillas to, where they went into the house because she forgot her change. She was not dead. She was alive, but she looked like, you know, somebody ran over her. She then asked them if they could take her to her house. His mom and the uncle did get that lady out, and they took her, you know, straight to her house, and that the lady on the way there was saying, hey, don't tell anybody about what happened, don't tell them who I am, and I'll give you anything you want. Neither of them agreed to this. Like, they didn't want anything from the lady, and they just dropped her off and they booked it out of there. He says that after those few days, like when that happened, every single one of them got really sick. They all had a really high fever and they just couldn't go to sleep at night. He also mentions that that house where that old lady was living in, it stayed abandoned ever since that day. They also never saw this lady again and never heard from her ever again. Like I said, if you ran me over, you think I'm gonna live in that town? That's embarrassing as fuck. I would move away too. I'm just joking, but what the fuck? Like, can you imagine seeing that? And then she's like, don't tell anybody, and you're telling everybody. And what? I don't think she might have been a bad witch, because like, if that, okay, let's just put ourselves in her shoes, okay? You ran me over, I'm telling you don't tell anybody, they don't want anything from me. If I'm a bad witch, I would have been like, I'm gonna make your ass forget, or I'll turn you into a frog right now. So maybe she wasn't even a bad witch, but like, girl, maybe turn into a different bird and fly higher. What the fuck? From stories, because I know that I'm joking, but like, I believe in this shit. I believe that there's witches that can turn into like animals. I don't know if they decide what animal it could be, but like, yeah, a turkey. I need to stop talking shit. This isn't a talking shit moment. That lady got ran over. We shouldn't be talking shit. Yes, you're involved in this now. Oh my god. Anyway, what do you guys think?
This woman worked nights at a gas station while she was in college. This particular night, she said that she was up front, straightening things up, and her supervisor was in the back, wrapping things up so he can leave. She wasn't supposed to be there by herself at night, but they would leave her there anyway. But she noticed this man came in, and he was pacing back and forth throughout the same aisle. He did not switch aisles. It was just back and forth, back and forth. Her boss finally leaves. He doesn't check anything. He doesn't ask her if she needs help with anything, but she notices the man is still there, pacing. She said he eventually stopped pacing. There was a chair that was by the public restrooms, and he sat right there for a little while. She said she kind of just left him alone because she thought maybe he didn't have anywhere to go. A customer comes in, and the customer requests something. She has to go to the back for whatever it was, and she comes back up, and she notices the man is gone. It was really busy, and she said it was at a steady pace, but after about 2 o'clock, she said it got really quiet. There were barely any cars coming through for gas, so she pretty much just kicked her feet up and was reading a book. There was complete silence, like no kind of car coming through at all, she said, for about 30 minutes. But then she got this really weird feeling in her stomach. She looks up from behind the counter, and she's looking through the door, and she can see that same man that was pacing back and forth is standing near one of the pumps, and she was just confused. So she just sat there for a minute wondering what he was doing. But before she knew it, he was running full speed towards the door, and she felt like she should get up and lock the door. She didn't make it there in time. He ends up inside of the store, and he tells her to give him everything. His robbery was very short-lived. The customer ended up coming through, and the customer jumped back in the car, sped off, and she says she thinks the customer is the one that called the police because she couldn't even get to the trigger alarm. He hears the police siren, so he starts booking it out the door. She sees him running away from the store, but she also hears gunshots in the distance. The other officers come in there to comfort her, start asking her questions, asking her what happened. She did let them know what happened from start to finish, from when he walked in to when he left. The police officers let her know later on that night that he was unalived. It's a week later since the robber has been unalived, and she said she hasn't been back to work, but she's feeling terrible, and it's been feeling like somebody's watching her. She's leaving out the dorm to go meet with her friends, and she walks past the laundry room, and she sees a man out the corner of her eye. She got a chilling feeling, so she just kept on going. Before she made it to the main dorm door, she said she felt something tugging at her purse, and she turned around and she could see the robber that was unalived clear as day. She starts to run. She's panicking. She can't believe what she just saw because she could have sworn the police told her that he was no more. She says he's following her everywhere. He's in the car with her when she's driving. He's at the place that her and her friends are meeting up at. She can't go anywhere without seeing him. Now, she's 21 years old now. This happened when she was 19. She says she doesn't see him as often, but she still sees him. He still pops up, and she still does not know what to do. 2 weeks ago, she moved into her first apartment. Her mom and dad were dropping her off and helping her move in. She said her dad is not the clingy type, but she noticed that when he was leaving, he wouldn't let her go. And he didn't even do that when he dropped her off at college. He's not really affectionate, but he told her, he was like, please, if you need anything, please call me. And she just thought that was weird because, like she said, her dad doesn't do this. Her first day there, she's hanging things up, she's unpacking, but she was hanging up a mirror in her living room. And she said she could literally feel someone grab the back of her head and slam her head into the mirror. She had to go to the hospital and she needed stitches after that. When she gets to the hospital, they have her lay on the stretcher and they're having her wait so somebody can come out there and take care of her. While she's waiting on a stretcher, she said the robber that was unalived walks out of nowhere and comes and sits right next to her feet. And this was 2 weeks ago. He's obviously angry. You need to bless the house. He's holding on to you because he's angry. Like he gotta be, because he don't know you from a can of paint. There's no way that he's there just to piss you off. He's there because he's angry. I bet you he blames you for him being unalived. Email me, like, immediately.
There were figures hiding under her bed. If you're new here, I'm Krista, and on my account I tell spooky stories either submitted to me or found on the internet. Today's story was submitted by Sierra. In mid-June of 2023, I was staying in my dad's room with my grandma while he was traveling. My grandma was asleep and I was scrolling on TikTok. Suddenly, I got the feeling that someone was watching me. I lifted my phone up to see and spotted a black figure with long black hair staring at me. After a few seconds of eye contact, she turned and went under the bed as if she was walking down a set of stairs. I'm not sure if I was being delusional or what, so I just decided to go back to bed. Fast forward to November of 2024, I was sleeping in my mom's room after having a nightmare. I woke up in the middle of the night and saw another figure, but this one was bald. It made eye contact for a few seconds and then went under the bed the exact same way. On February 6, 2025, at around 7:15 a.m., I woke up to a man and a woman whispering in my ear. In Spanish, they were saying, ayúdame, necesito ayuda, which means, help me, I need help. I ran to my mom, who told me she had just been choking. Then I asked my dad how he was able to help my mom because he was sleeping, and he said, I heard you screaming saying your mom needed help. I told him I was sleeping too, and he just stared at me. The next month, I was downstairs watching a movie when my dad yelled from upstairs for me to stop shouting at him. He came downstairs and said he heard me clear as day, saying I was late for rehearsal and needed my uniform. It was a Saturday, and my rehearsals are only on weekdays. I kept telling him it wasn't me, but he didn't believe me. Around that time, my best friend had 2 dreams about a female ghost following me, one throwing my McDonald's fries and one lunging at me. Now, I just hear rustling upstairs and see door handles move sometimes, but nothing else. What is going on in your house? And the fact that you were like, yeah, that doesn't happen. I just hear rustling and see door handles move. That's so, I'd move out, immediately. I'd actually, never go back into that house ever again. And the fact that both of the figures, walked under your bed as if they were walking down the stairs, the fact that they both did that in the exact same way. What is going on? That's so specific and so creepy. This is, a combination of, freaky ghosts in your house and also a mimic. Because, I wonder if those things are related. They've got to be related, right? Anyways, super creepy. And if you guys have any stories you'd like me to read, please email them to me and I will get to them if I can. I will see you in the next one.
The person that sent me the story calls it another Hat Man story for you. By the way, if you have a story that you'd like to share with our glitch community about glitches in the Matrix, dreams, aliens, cryptids, or the paranormal, you can send it to this email address. And remember, we believe you. Hi, Jess. Hi. I really appreciate your videos. It's interesting to see all the weird things that happen to people. And I'm one of those people that weird things happen to a lot. I'll probably write to you again. I saw you recently post a video about the Hat Man and I felt compelled to share my story, except I can't find my story. I had originally submitted it to the Hat Man project with exact locations and dates, but their website got hacked and all their data was deleted. I didn't even know that was a thing, the Hat Man project. That actually sounds really cool. It's a little sus that it got deleted. I had saved the story on my computer in a Word file and the file seems to be missing. It's not on any of my backup drives. Also, my photos from this trip are missing. I have 3 layers of backup and this should not happen. This deepens my mystery. This is also why I am up at 4:30 a.m. I've literally spent the past few hours trying to figure it out. I went to Cuba a lot and I've stayed at many resorts. I'm a Canadian and this is our go-to travel destination. I can't remember the exact resort. Wait, hold on. Is that true? Other Canadians? Is your go-to travel destination Cuba? And why? Just curious. I can't remember the exact resort, but I'm thinking that it's Grand Memories Veradero. Oh, good 2023. Let's try that again. I'm thinking it's Grand Memories Veradero, I don't know, August of 2023. I could be wrong, but all of the data is missing. I don't remember which room number. I do remember that it's the middle of our stay, so it's like a Wednesday or a Thursday or something. I was not drinking that day. I did not get too much sun as it had rained quite a bit and we stayed mostly in the common areas. It was just my husband and myself. We decided to go to bed early and hopefully the following day was going to have better weather. Every time I go to bed in a hotel room, I always leave the bathroom light on just in case I have to use the facilities in the middle of the night and I don't want to trip because I am unfamiliar with the room setup. Same, but also I'm scared of the dark. Raise your hand if you're also in your 40s and you're scared of the dark. This particular room has 2 single beds close to each other. My husband sleeps near the patio door and I am closer to the bathroom. Somewhere around 2 to 3 a.m., I woke up suddenly. I'm a really light sleeper. I felt like someone was staring at me. I saw all of the videos of people having their hotel room broken into, so this was the first place that my mind goes to. Someone snuck into our room, which honestly is more terrifying than ghosts. Like, people are scarier than ghosts. I open my eyes and there's no one there. I also noticed that the bathroom light is not that bright, almost as if someone had closed the door partway. I sit up in the bed confused as to why I felt like someone was watching me. I'm mostly looking straight ahead of me and to the right towards the bathroom. Then my brain notices a movement in the dimly lit area at the foot of my husband's bed to the left. I realize there is a figure standing there. It's a dark shadow with a cape and a top hat. I can't see much below the thigh area of the figure standing there because the bed is in the way, but the top half of this man is quite clear, even in the dimly lit room. He was taller than the curtain rods from my angle. The curtains in my illustration goes to the ceiling, but in the real room, it stopped at the top of the patio door. I'm guessing he's 7 feet tall to the top of his hat. Okay, here's where I'm going to insert the picture. Ooh, I don't like it. I'm thinking my eyes are playing tricks on me, so I lean over to get a closer look. I'm not losing my mind. There really is a dark shadow man standing there. He's very clearly wearing a top hat and a cape, but everything about him is black, like a void in the light. Looking back, I thought it was very strange that I didn't freak out at the sight of the shadow entity. My brain absolutely acknowledged that he was there, but I was more bewildered than scared. This was not happening in a matter of 2 seconds. I was giving this guy a good look for at least 10 to 20 seconds. It seemed long. It was almost as if he didn't care that I was looking right at him or didn't see me looking at him. I didn't feel any interaction between this entity and myself. He was very interested in my husband, and I felt like he was looking at him. I had enough time to process that this entity didn't seem to care about me sitting there at all. I see the hand of this man, like in the picture, reach out and touch my husband's bed. I can see the blanket move. I looked twice to see if maybe it was his foot moving, but his foot was in fact staying still, yet the blanket near his foot was indeed moving. This movement was headed towards my husband's foot. When I was zoomed in looking at the blanket, I didn't see a clear hand anymore, but I could clearly see the blanket move like invisible fingers running across the fabric. This is when panic set in and I freaked out. I did not want this thing to touch my husband. I screamed my husband's name and I reached across the void between us to grab his arm. I hollered at him to wake up now. When my husband woke up, I saw the shadow leave the room through the curtains and out the patio door. Like, did he walk out the patio door like it was a real person walking, that it looked like it was a real person walking? Or did he just like glide towards the patio door? Or like, I think it's really weird that he's exiting the room and not just like disappearing? I'm only asking these questions, by the way, because I feel like a lot of people assume sometimes that it is that whatever they're seeing is a hat man just because he's wearing a hat, but it could be just like a spirit or something else. I also don't know about the hat man trying to touch people. As far as I know, they are just watchers. And I don't know about the cape. I feel like some people say cape, some people don't. So I don't know if this is actual hat man or if this is just a spirit wearing a top hat trying to touch your husband. Crazy, as I am writing this, my arms are feeling a chill. I get it. I told my husband what I saw, and like a typical skeptic, he just told me to go back to sleep and went to sleep himself. Is he freaking kidding me? I could not sleep. I couldn't be able to sleep either. The first thing that I did was go open that bathroom door all the way. Then I took to Google and I started looking up the Hat Man shadow figure, and sure enough, there was some phenomenon called the Hat Man. The only thing is that the internet says he has red eyes and such, but I didn't notice anything like that. It also said this happens with sleep paralysis, but I was not paralyzed. I was moving around that bed wide awake. I had sleep paralysis once like 15 years ago, and this was not it. The internet says that this could be hallucinations from Benadryl, but I'm allergic to Benadryl and most certainly didn't take that at all. It also said it could be from sleep deprivation. I was not sleep deprived. Actually, I had slept a lot on that very relaxing trip. I clearly saw this thing. I was wide awake. I had ChatGPT do an image illustration of what I saw. It's not exact, but you get the idea. Yes, I already put it in. I hope I was supposed to put it in before, if that was okay that I did that and I didn't wait until now. So yes, that is another thing too. People definitely do say most of the time they see red glowing eyes. And he is the most famous sleep paralysis demon in the world, and that can be caused by Benadryl, but that's not the only time that he is seen, and you don't have to be in sleep paralysis to see him. We see them, a lot of people see him even waking. Sometimes people see him, like not in the middle of the night. I mean, I'm really weirded out by this idea because I'm wondering if he touched me first and this is why I woke up, or was he only interested in my husband? If he was only interested in my husband, then why? What is the Hat Man? What does he want? What is the purpose of this phenomena? What would have happened if I didn't wake up? I have so many questions. Cuba's a beautiful country with beautiful resorts, and like I said, I went many times and I never saw anything weird despite its heavy background with pirates and shipwrecks. The rest of the trip was uneventful, and I went back to Cuba 3 more times after that and nothing happened. I've never seen a Hat Man before or after that event. Now I'm kind of freaking out because I'm missing data on my PC and backup drives. If possible, I would like to stay anonymous if you tell the story. There is a reason the Hat Man project got shut down, and I don't want to be a part of whatever that is. I get it, completely anonymous, you got. So like I said, and everyone please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but as I know, from the information that I know, the Hat Man just watches. We don't really know his purpose, but he's never like hurt anyone, tried to hurt anyone. I don't remember him ever touching anyone. So I don't know if this was actually the Hat Man. If he was indeed trying to reach out and touch your husband, sorry, I had to sneeze. If he was indeed trying to reach out and touch your husband, I don't know if it was actually the Hat Man or not. It could have literally just been a spirit, like a shadow figure, still a shadow figure, but like not the Hat Man specifically, like maybe a spirit. And I don't know why he was touching your husband. Maybe he was touching him to give him sleep paralysis. Maybe he was trying to take his energy. Maybe he was just curious. I literally don't know. And I don't know if he touched you first. I don't know. Please, anyone that knows any more information than me, please put it in the comments. And thank you so much for sharing your story.
I really need you to try hard to picture this properly because I think modern life kind of misunderstands what it was truly like to disappear back in the day, like before modern life. Now, for example, when people get lost, they have phones, GPS, location sharing, emergency beacons, and smartwatches, and all sorts of things that like have communication. Back then, they had nothing, so they could literally just go out there and vanish. Vermont has one place in particular where this happens quite often, the Bennington Triangle. Bennington Triangle is a dense forest mountainous area in southern Vermont. Basically the kind of place where everything starts to look very similar after a while, you know, tree, rock, stream, tree, stream, tree, rock, tree, stream. Turn around one time and suddenly now you're all disoriented and you don't know which way is up, which way is down, which way you came from, which way is left, which way is right. Honestly, sometimes a New England forest can be way scarier than a Western forest. The forest of Vermont almost feels like it's watching you, whereas like the Western forests are more open. It just has a different feeling. It's not altogether less horrifying or more horrifying because there are scary things that happen within, but I'm just saying like the overall feeling of each forest is very different. One of the stories that people keep talking about, or like it never dies. The story never dies. It happened in I think 1946 to a woman named Paula Noah Weldon. He was a normal, bright, smart, 18-year-old college student. Nothing about her story starts out strange. Then one day on December 1st, Paula decided to leave her campus and go on a hike, is what she told people. That was nothing out of the ordinary. She had done things like that in the past. She hadn't said anything weird, like any goodbyes or any like cryptic messages or anything like that. Just, I'm going on a hike, I'll see you guys later, this is where I'm going and this is what's happening. Peace. Multiple people saw her along the trail. A couple later remembered that they saw her further up the trail and remembered that she was wearing a bright red jacket, which I don't know, it's so sad. Like that's just so sad to me. Because you picture somebody like alive and well and just expecting to come back home in one piece later, maybe go grab some dinner, maybe go back to campus, maybe go finish assignments or something, but she never came back. At first, people weren't like immediately alarmed because they're like, oh, hey, it's a college student. College students do this sometimes. They just take off. But then a lot of time started to pass by and search parties were sent out. This wasn't some tiny search. This was like the entire community and all of the police force, all of the firefighters, all of the, every single person was involved. There was airplanes, helicopters, sniffer dogs, people on the ground. Everybody in that community was walking through the dense forest trying to find one 18-year-old girl. There was nothing. There was no evidence at all. There was no red coat. There was no evidence at all that she had been out there. Some people think she got lost. Some people think that maybe she passed away due to exposure. Scary too, because like the wilderness does not care how intelligent you are. It doesn't care how respectful you are or how much knowledge of it you may have. One wrong turn, one twisted ankle, everything changes. But often when people talk about the Bennington Triangle specifically, they tend to look at other stories as well, because it's not just one. This has happened so many times in this region that it just can't go unaccounted for. There's another story of a person named Mitty Rivers. He was a very experienced outdoorsman. He was a local guide and he had just vanished completely out there as well. Now, personally, do I think that there's like portals out in the Bennington Triangle? Yes, I do think that. Do I think Bigfoot carried these people off into the mountains? Maybe, we don't know. But those are just two unexplainable disappearances that happened in the Bennington Triangle. There are so many other ones. Almost like Vermont's version of the Bermuda Triangle, to be honest with you. There's a lot more stories within it, and I'm happy to talk about it if you guys are interested in hearing about them.
My husband passed away over 3 years ago in a car accident. Up until a couple of nights ago, I heard 3 supple knocks. When I checked the peephole, tell me why my husband, who died over 3 years ago, was stood outside, dripping wet. Story time. I've been married to my husband for over 20 years. We lived a normal life. We were a happy couple, just like any normal couples. But then one day, on his way to work, weather was very bad, condition was really bad, but he still had to go into work. Unfortunately, my husband slid off the road and he crashed right into this massive great tree. I was called in to come and identify his body. When I got there, I was so shaken. I was so, scared. I didn't even know what to expect. I didn't know what I was going to see when I checked. Eventually, I gathered the courage and I checked his body. And I saw my husband, his face was scared. This made me feel what he felt. His last moments were really bad. Fast forward, life has been going on okay. Of course, I'm still grieving my late husband. Of course, things aren't going well for me. Of course, I miss him. Of course, he has always been in my life. We have always done everything together. And then now he's taken away from me. But then I kept seeing little hints and things happening in my home as if my husband were leaving these clues to tell me that he's okay. Up until a couple of nights ago, we had a very big rainstorm. The wind was really bad. And then I heard 3 supple knocks on my front door. At first, I thought maybe it's just the raindrops that's hitting on the door. Maybe it's just the wind, because I wasn't expecting anyone at that time of the night. Then the knock came again, 3 supple knocks. I checked the time and it was the exact same time that my husband usually arrives back home after work. I was so scared. I didn't know who was out there. I didn't know what to see when I checked that door. Eventually, I gathered the courage and I checked the peephole. Tell me why my husband, who passed away over 3 years ago, was stood out there drenching wet. I staggered back in fear. I went and I checked the peephole again before I could actually open that peephole. My husband said, open the door. Why are you always taking too long to open the door? And this is what my husband used to tell me when he was alive. Anytime he comes back from work, if I took long to open the door, this is what he would tell me. So I was so shocked to see my husband and to hear his voice and to repeat exact same thing he used to do when he was alive. Before I knew it, the door flung open. I did not touch that door, and he was inside the house. He was like gliding through, but then there were muddy prints after him. When he walked past me, he stopped, glared at me directly in the eyes, and he asked me, "Who is that behind you?" I stumbled back. I was in shock. Fear gripped me. I had cold chills down my spine because I don't know what my husband is telling me. Then he walked towards the hallway. We have got this great mirror. When he got there, he stared directly into the mirror. I thought he was looking at his own reflection. But then again, I was wrong. He was looking directly at me, and he said, "He is behind you. Be careful. Don't let him take over your body." People, telling you, at this point, I just wanted to disappear. Because I was scared. This was creepy. This was freaking me out, what was happening right before my eyes. Then, a few minutes later, my husband turned around and then he went towards the front door. The door swung open again. I saw the muddy prints of my late husband leading to the front door. But then, there were these great giant footprints right after my late husband. It looked very freaky. He left. I quickly locked the door. I ran upstairs and I locked the bedroom door. I could not even sleep a wink. But tell me why. The next day, exact same time, 3 knocks, supple knocks on the front door again. This time, I pretended I didn't hear, but I could hear him telling me that, "I know you are in there, so please let me in." People, what the hell did I encounter? If you think you have an idea, please drop it out in the comment section below. But weird things are happening. I'm scared. This is freaky. This is scary, you know?
This is a true story that happened to me when I was 16. For context, every year, me and my granddad would go on a random short notice holiday to Portugal. We'd book it a couple of days in advance before leaving, and we'd stay in hostels. Altogether, the holidays were always cheap, and we'd spend our days roaming the streets, and every time we'd walk past a church, my granddad would make us go inside. He always had a love for architecture. However, the old women who would pray there would always tell us to never look through the windows of the church at night, because that's when the spirits come to pray.
Oh.
One night, we were walking back to our hostel after having a couple of drinks at a nearby bar when we walked past the old church. My granddad stopped and tapped my shoulder. "Did you see that?" he muttered. I assumed he was just a bit tipsy, but nonetheless I looked. For the first few seconds, couldn't see anything. But when my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I could see the faint outline of a child's knitted hat sitting on one of the pews. We both shrugged it off, walked back to the hostel. At this point, it was about 2:30 a.m. and we climbed into our beds, switched off the light. I drifted asleep despite my granddad's snores, and I was awoken to the feeling of my mattress dipping, as if someone was sitting on the edge of my bed. I jolt up to scan the room, and I saw no one there. But I saw the bathroom door ever so slightly open. I assumed my granddad went to the toilet in the night, and he left it open. However, the more I looked, the more obvious it became what I was looking at. The door was slowly opening. So slowly you wouldn't even notice it was moving, but the subtle silhouette of a figure became more and more obvious. I panicked and I froze. I tried to shout out to my granddad to wake up, but I couldn't get the words out. The shape became apparent to be that of a boy who happened to be wearing what looked to be a child's knitted hat. I closed my eyes and I prayed it would go away, and when I finally got the courage to open them, the door was closed and the boy was gone. I nudged my granddad awake, and when he woke up, I told him everything, but he didn't believe me and he drifted back off to sleep. The next morning, after not getting a lick of sleep, we went to get breakfast from a local cafe. I ordered a coffee with milk, and when the waiter brought it over, it was black. My granddad, being the man he is, a man who thrives on whining and complaining, he complained to the waiter, and swiftly he came back with a pint of milk to pour into my cup. On the side of the pint was a picture of a young boy.
Oh, God.
In a knitted hat. The text read, according to Google Translate, something along the lines of, "Missing. Boy, age 7. Last seen, 12th of October, 2019. At that moment in time, it dawned on me that I was the only person who knew that boy was dead, because there was nothing alive about the boy I saw that night.
The old restaurant had burned down in 1997. That was fact. Every newspaper claimed that the building had been demolished. And yet, every Halloween, just after midnight, it appears at the end of Miller Road. A glowing fast food restaurant standing where only an empty abandoned shell of a building should be.
It's weird.
The sign buzzed in the darkness. McBurger Palace, open forever. Apparently, people who entered were never seen again. Most dismissed it as an urban legend until 11 teenagers decided to live stream themselves spending the night inside. The stream lasted 23 minutes, but only 4 minutes were recovered. The first thing you'd have seen, if you'd been watching the live stream, is flashlights sweeping across a spotless diner, laughter in the air from the excited teenagers, bright red booths, shiny floors, even fresh food sitting on trays. Fries with hot grease and covered in salt sprinkles. The only worrying thing was the clock. You could see it every now and again as the camera dashed across it and it was spinning backwards. The laughter ends soon after the teenagers see it. What the hell was that? The camera zooms into a piece of glass positioned at the cashier's register behind the counter. A face, white, smiling, then ducks down and crawls away on all fours, snorting and giggling. Oh, it's probably just one of us messing around. Jared, probably. Dude, I'm here, a disembodied voice says. Well, it's one of us, I'm sure of it. Let's just keep going. They continue exploring and soon they reach the kitchen. The freezer door stands open. Cold mist pours across the floor. Inside hangs a single sign. Employee of the month. The photograph beneath it shows Ronald McDonald. In fact, Ronald McDonald doesn't exist anymore, does he?
Does he not?
No. There's something about it. I don't know what it was, but...
Sorry, back into McHamburglar.
McHamburglar, right, okay. So the photograph beneath the Employee of the Month sign shows Ronald McDonald.
McDoris.
Moving image like something out of Harry Potter. Wow, that is so cool. The clown in the picture slowly turns his head towards the camera and then blinks. The live stream erupts into screaming. Ronald smiles wider and wider and wider until his jaw splits apart. The photograph begins climbing out of its frame, like wet paper being pulled from a wall. His arms unfold first, then his legs, then his neck, and it just keeps growing until his head brushes the ceiling. Ronald then begins singing. Ba-da-ba, come inside. I've got secrets I can't hide. Fresh hot fries and melted bones. I've been eating all alone. Have a nugget, 109. You can't run, you can't hide. Fatten up, make bigger your behind. Ba-da-ba, don't be slow. The meat is warm down below.
That's why he was cancelled. My meat's warm down below.
The song continues for 14 more seconds and then the video cuts like something just severed it. The recovered footage jumps forward and the camera's lying on its side now. There's no noise, just silence. The kitchen's gone, the freezer's gone, the entire restaurant has changed. The bright family diner looks decrepit, abandoned. The menu above the counter no longer displays food, but hundreds of human names, each one accompanied by a date. When the police recovered the footage, they matched every name to a missing persons report filed in the last 20 years, some only weeks old. Then the image changes. The camera is being picked up by someone, and it pans round to an old, filthy, ruined booth with figures sat around it. At first, you'd be forgiven for thinking that the figures sitting in the booths were just 11 customers stuck in a time glitch. Then one turns its head, and its smile is huge. Teeth pointed, eyes white, and perhaps the strangest thing of all, a bright orange curly wig perched on his head. And that's where the video ends. The police rushed over to the old restaurant, none of them convinced that they would find anything. Why would they? It was just a burnt-out old building. But when they arrived, they found a single deep-fat fryer on in the middle of the diner. Oil bubbling away and something poking out of the basket. Something with toes. On the wall in blood was written, "Thank you for dining with us. See you next Halloween."
I used to work for a high-end catering company in Los Angeles, and one night I worked a party that still gives me the creeps. This submission to Spooky Scary Storytime came from Jamie. Her name has been changed, but she says when she was 23, she was working for this company that handled all kinds of high-profile events. The company did everything from charity galas to movie premieres to private parties in gated communities, and the rules were always the same because it was very professional. You didn't ask for photos, you didn't ask questions, and you pretended that you didn't recognize anyone, even if you did. Most of the events that she worked were exactly what you would expect. She said they were filled with wealthy people who were extremely well dressed. They would drink expensive champagne and eat these tiny bites of food that cost more than her entire weekly grocery bill. But the night in question that she is sharing the story about happened in the early 2000s, and she said she thought going into it that it was a Halloween party because it was near the end of October. The way that the company was structured was that everyone on staff for an event would carpool together in the catering van. And so on the night of this party, she and all her coworkers, as well as her manager, were in the catering van headed to the event when, right before they pulled up to this mansion in Hollywood Hills, her manager turns around from the front seat and she's like, "Same rules as always. This client values privacy above everything else. This is a corporate fundraiser if anyone asks, and anyone that you see tonight, you did not see here." This was not unusual, as Jamie said that this was sort of the same little speech they got anytime they were coming up to an event. But what was unusual was how nervous her manager seemed. And normally she was very calm and cool and collected. But she just seemed particularly tense. And so anyway, they drive down this private road past this gate and they get to the mansion. And Jamie immediately notices that there's no Halloween decorations outside. The mansion was surrounded by trees so thick you couldn't see the city lights down below. And she said she noticed an insane amount of security around the property. Another thing that stood out as a little bit strange on this night was that they wore plain black shirts as opposed to the normal shirts they wore with their company logo. She just thought though that it was because it was a black tie affair. And so they go inside and the inside is beautiful and there's white roses everywhere. And again, there's no Halloween decorations. All of these limos and nice cars are dropping off the guests as they're starting to arrive, and people are slowly being ushered in by security, and she is walking around with a tray of champagne. Some people were people that she had seen on TV, others looked vaguely familiar, and the host was this beautiful blonde woman with a small birthmark that she did not recognize at all. There were about 150 people, give or take, but everyone just sort of smiled politely at each other and were having very light conversations, and she remembers saying to one of her coworkers, like, "Man, this party is stiff." They agreed that the whole party just felt rehearsed, like everyone there was pretending to have a good time instead of actually having a good time. But normal party, nothing out of the ordinary, and around 10 p.m. that night, her tray was empty, and she had to go back to the main service kitchen to get more champagne. But she noticed that the party had filled in at this point, and everybody was standing pretty close together in this main area, and the process of getting back to the service kitchen was sort of a pain. And so she had noticed that there was this hallway that seemed to lead off the back of the service kitchen into the main area where she was standing in, but that everybody else was using the main part of the house to move. And the guests are obviously not filtering in and out of the service kitchen. This hallway wasn't closed off or anything. It was just an arched door frame at the back of the room that seemed to be a shortcut. And so she was like, "I'll just cut through there. It's easier." And so she enters the hallway and she noticed that it did seem to end in the service kitchen. And she starts to walk down it and she's sort of glancing at the walls, and she notices all along both sides of the wall are these framed photographs. And it's a mix of group and family photos of what seem to be past parties and events at the mansion. And it's a mix of black and white and color photographs, but beneath each photo is a little silver plaque with the year. She stops at one that is labeled 1964, and she's looking at it, and it seems to depict a glamorous party around the backyard swimming pool and fountain. In the photo are about 15 different people, and they're all just gathered together and smiling, but she notices in the center is what appears to be the same blonde woman who is hosting the party. She even has the same little birthmark on her face. And so she's staring at it and she's like, "This must be her grandmother or her mother or something. Like, there's no way this is the same woman." But like, the resemblance of the two women is striking. And then she notices that in that same photo, there is another man that she swears she just served champagne to 20 minutes before. The guy has silver hair. She didn't recognize him. It wasn't like he was on TV or something, but he had been in the library all evening talking and entertaining guests, and he seemed to have a close relationship with the host. And it appeared to be the same man in the photo. She said even the wrinkles around his eyes were the same in the photo. It wasn't a younger version of him. It was exactly the same man. So she kept looking at the photos on the wall, and she was trying to make sense of what she was seeing. And the photos didn't seem to be taken every year. Sometimes they skipped a few. So there was like 1967, 1970, 1973, 1978. But in all the photos seemed to be at least those two people.
But their faces in the photos were exactly the same, like the same smiles, the same expressions, like somebody had copied and pasted them throughout the photographs. And then she heard footsteps behind her, and so she turns around, and there is the silver-haired man that she had seen in the pictures. He smiles at her almost in like a friendly way, and he says, "You shouldn't be back here." And he didn't seem to be intimidating or like trying to scare her, but she's just like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And she said she started apologizing. And then he said something that made every hair on her body stand up. And he said, "They always get curious." And she looked around, but he was talking to her, but she didn't understand what he meant when he said they. Not you, they, as if this had happened before. So she apologizes again. She hurries back to the kitchen, and in the kitchen is another one of her coworkers that she's friends with. And so she says, "Did you see the photos?" And her coworker goes pale. She's like, "Oh my gosh, that hallway is so creepy." And just as they're talking about it, their manager walks in and she says, "You girls need to stay out of the east hallway." She didn't ask if they had been through the hallway. She already knew, like someone had told her. So the rest of the party continues, and the night is still boring. Everyone's very stiff. Nobody seemed to be intoxicated despite the endless champagne. Barely anyone even touched the food. But around midnight, all of the conversation seemed to stop, and everyone headed out toward the back garden. Jamie says there was no announcement or anything like that. It was just a woman in an elegant green dress stepped outside first, and the rest of the guests followed as if they had some unspoken instruction. It was a quiet procession outside. Nobody spoke a word, and Jamie's manager instructed all of the staff to stay in the kitchen, but she said curiosity got the better of her, and she peeked outside. And that's where Jamie says she saw what still bothers her, because all of the guests had gathered around an empty stone fountain just off the side of the pool. Nobody spoke, nobody moved. They simply stared at the empty basin of the fountain for nearly 5 minutes. They then began to hum before the blonde host of the party stepped forward and emptied a vial of something into the fountain. She heard her say, "We remember the first bargain and we honor the unseen." The host appeared to continue talking, but Jamie says she couldn't make out everything else that she said. One by one, the other guests stepped forward, and they seemed to be dropping personal items in the empty fountain. And she said she couldn't quite make out what these items were before her manager came out and told her to go back in the service kitchen. Jamie says she did as she was told, but then said that curiosity got the better of her and she had to see what was going on. And so she said she had to use the bathroom and snuck back out to the cracked door, where she watched everyone still gathered around the fountain, standing in a perfect circle, not speaking, just smiling at whatever was inside. She said from where she stood, the fountain looked completely empty besides whatever small objects they had dropped in. And then she says just as soon as she had seen it, she blinked and it was over. Everybody stopped smiling all at once. They all started talking to each other, and the party seemed to resume. By 2 a.m, everyone had cleared out, and they packed up the catering van and headed out. But on the way back, her coworker, who had also seen the pictures, pipes up from the back of the van, and she's like, "So who else here besides Jamie saw the old photos?" She said, "What was going on with that? You know, that was so weird." And the manager, who's driving, pulls the van over on the side of the road, and she whips around in the front seat. She says, "If anyone wants to continue working for this company, you need to forget this address." And Jamie says this was also odd and out of character for her manager, because while she wasn't necessarily her friend, she had never shown this level of stern communication with the staff, especially seeming without reason. And so that was that. They got back to where they were headquartered and they went home for the night. But she says a few weeks after that, she and her coworker, who had also seen the photos, were suddenly let go without explanation. Neither of them had even had so much as a write-up, so it just felt very sudden, and both of them just received a short call that said their services were no longer needed. And she said at the time it feels random, but when she thinks about it now, it does seem strange that those two were the only two who had gone down that hallway, or at least they were the only two who had spoken up about it. And she said she still wonders what was really going on in that party. And even though years have passed, her curiosity still gets the better of her sometimes, and she will look up that address. But she says the mansion is still listed as active, but that it's owned by a trust that is private with no publicly available names or associations, which is standard for a mansion of that size. But she said there was also nothing online about an event at that mansion, or no photos of any event at that mansion that she can find. It's as if whoever was hosting wanted this completely shielded. And she said she really doesn't tell this story much because it makes her sound insane, and even her husband thinks that she was just imagining that it was the same people in those photos, but she said she knows for sure that it was. And she thinks that whatever was happening at the party that night was not about a fundraiser or about a charitable cause. She thinks they were celebrating something else. Let her know your thoughts. Even though her name has been changed, she will be seeing the comments. And if you have a spooky, scary story time you think no one would believe, or something that happened to you that still leaves you unsettled, please send it in. We would love to hear it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, it's just getting worse and worse. I never heard this. So, what's up, Mama?
I ain't never want to tell him.
What's up, Mama?
What's up, son?
Oh my gosh. I thought I heard it all. But it just keep getting worse. Okay.
These stories that's why I don't like telling them.
So, Mama, you said you seen a beast. You said a beast. Whatever it is, I'm a beast with a head on one side and another head on the other side.
It was like, it looked like, have you ever saw a llama?
Like a llama, like the animal, a llama.
Llama.
Oh.
It had like the whole body with four feet, four legs. He had a head here and a head at the end. And he was like, because I'll never forget, it was me and my brother and my sister and my cousin and his sister.
Was this in the daytime or the nighttime?
It was like getting dusk dark because we went to visit our friend. You know, my mom told us we could go over there and play with her, but make sure that we come home before dusk dark. And we stayed in the country. And so we decided to go over there and play. Then we decided to start coming home because it was getting dark. And so, we walking home. It's in the countryside. But it was a highway. We took the back way, which was a highway.
Yeah.
And we was walking home, me and my sister, brother, and my cousin. And so as we was walking, we see this thing. I said, we used to call them push me pull yous back in the day.
Push me pull yous?
Oh,
because it got like two sides.
Because we really didn't know the true name of them. When you kids.
Well, what do you name that?
My father said it was a llama because we told him. He said, I think that was a llama y'all saw. I said, no, because it had a whole body, 4 legs, and it had a head here and a head here. And then so, as it was getting dark, dusk dark, you could see the sun. I guess the sun was down, but it still had a little light. Not too much light. You could tell it was getting dark. And so we walking home, talking, and we looked on the side of this thing. We had to pass it. We passed it, and we looked at it, and we just took out running. Because the thing looked at us.
Both of the heads looked at you?
Both of the heads just looked at us, and we started running. We started running. Me and my sister, brother, my cousins, his sister, we was running. And so as we was running, my cousin had fell, and she hurt her ankle. We left her back there. I said, we got to go back and get her. I said, we got to go back and get her. We can't leave her back there. I was so scared. I said, we going to go back and get her. And so it was me and her brother. We ran, and she was on the ground screaming hard. She said her ankle was, I don't know, I think she sprung her ankle. I said, we going back together. So we went back, we picked her up, and this thing, it wasn't that fast when it was coming toward. It's coming.
When y'all went,
we was dragging her.
Wait, hold on. When y'all went back to go get your cousin,
yeah,
it was coming towards y'all.
It got up and it was coming. You can see the front head, see the back head, but the back head, where the butt is supposed to be at. The head had turned around like it was following the front head.
So was it was running like sideways? Or was it just running like straight? Like
it was running straight.
Okay.
Because it had a whole body, the 4 legs, but it had a head at the back, head in the front. And like I said, when the thing was coming for us, the back head, you could see that it swerved just a little, but he could see. And that thing was coming. And my cousin was on the ground. She was screaming, hollering. We got to go back and get him. So me and her brother went back and we got her. Picked her up. I said, she said, my ankle is hurt. My ankle hurt. I said, well, I don't care. I almost peed on myself. That's how scared. I think we all peed on ourselves. But I ain't gonna lie. We picked her up and we was dragging her. We was running with her. We all was running. And you could see the thing. I said, it's coming. But it wasn't coming fast.
Oh.
But it was coming,
like galloping, just
at a speed.
Okay.
And we ran and we made it home. We didn't even know we didn't even make it to my cousin's house. We made it to our house. We had to get to my cousin's house before we get to our house. We made it to our house, and we told my mom, my dad, and my daddy kept saying, what have y'all seen? And we told him, we saw this push me pull you. He said, what the hell is a push me pull you? What everybody was saying was a push me pull you, but my dad kept saying that it was a llama. I don't know what it was.
So there's no way you could have misinterpreted this thing to be something else because y'all seen it twice. You seen it twice. You said you was walking and you seen it and
we would come from my friend's house.
Yeah.
At home and we passed it. But I just thought it was like, just like it might have been a cow or something.
Yeah, because you're not paying attention too much.
And when that thing turned around, when he looked at us, I was, oh Lord, have mercy, Jesus. What is it's a push me pull you. I kept saying, I don't know what.
And y'all kept running.
We kept running.
And then when your cousin fell, y'all went back to go get her.
We had to go back and get her.
You went back to go get her.
Leave her there.
And then you seen it coming. You seen it coming. Yeah. And you saw the same two heads.
Yeah, the thing was, the front head, it had a back head. Like I guess it was like, because my daddy kept saying, you probably saw two animals mating, having sex. They stuck together. Mm-hmm. I said, there was a whole animal. It was a whole animal, and it had a back head. Because when the thing was coming for us, the back head was still with it. But you could tell the head had turned.
Yeah, it turned around and looked a little bit, like the body turned a little. It just like.
And it was following the front head.
What?
My daddy kept saying it was a llama, and then he kept saying, maybe it was two animals having sex, and they stuck together. I said, no.
Let me ask.
This thing had 4 legs. We could see it.
What color was it?
Whole body.
What color was it?
Brown.
It was brown? Like a dark or light brown?
Like a darkish, dirty brown.
Oh my gosh.
But you can see the 4 legs and the whole body. And the 2 heads. The front head, the back head. I don't know. I don't think I know. We were scared.
It didn't have no horns or nothing?
No, it didn't have no horns. It had no horns. Just had like the ears.
Yeah.
It had no horns. But we could see that thing. And I always said it was the push me pull you, whatever push me pull you is. But that's what I thought they used to say back in the day. A push me pull you.
Y'all was just making stuff up because y'all was young. How old was y'all at this time?
We was young. I might have been me and my cousin. I think we were about the same age at the time. We might have been 12 at the same time.
Okay.
We were 12. My brother 11. My sister 10.
Yeah.
And my cousin might have been the same age my brother was, 11.
So you seen that? You seen some type of animal with 2 heads, and it had like hooves. Would you think it could have possibly been like a deer with 2 heads, or?
That wasn't no deer. I know what a deer looked like, and I know what a buck deer looked like. The bucks got them antennas, mm-hmm. And them like little deers, they don't have antennas yet, I don't know what it was. I thought it was a. Well, my daddy said a llama, but I said push me pull you. Whatever that is, I'm gonna have to look it up. Push me pull you.
I'm pretty sure that's not a real thing, but. I'm pretty sure
that ain't real name. But that's what we called it back in the day.
That's crazy.
And that's how scared I was. I was too scared.
What would you do if you were stopped at a red light late at night and the woman in the car next to you is screaming, sobbing, and repeating your name? This is Scared with Jess, and today's story is about a woman who says that she was driving home late at night and she saw something in the car next to her that she just can't explain. I used to drive home from work in complete silence. My job was loud and stressful and full of people talking to me all day, so by the time I got off at night, I didn't want music or podcasts or anything. I just wanted the quiet drive home. And one night, a little after midnight, I was stopped at a red light at a big intersection when a car pulled up beside me. At first, I didn't even look over, but then I heard it. Not crying, but screaming sobs, the kind that sound like somebody's in real pain and trying to breathe through it. I turned my head and the window of the car next to me was down. There was a woman in the driver's seat. She was completely soaked like she had just come out of deep water. Her hair was dripping down onto her shirt, and her mouth was hanging open. And her eyes looked milky, almost like the cloudy eyes of a blind person with cataracts, with these dark veins spreading around them. She was staring straight ahead, not at me, just straight ahead. And she was sobbing so hard her whole face was shaking while she kept repeating my name over and over. And then in between the sobbing, she said, "You're next." I froze. I remember looking ahead at the light and then back at her, thinking there was no way I had heard that right. And then she said my name again. And then again, "You're next." She never turned her head, never looked at me once. She just sat there staring at the road, crying and repeating my name while clawing at her own throat, with one hand like she was trying to rip something out of it. I should have driven through the light, I know that, but I couldn't move. I just sat there with both hands locked on the wheel, watching this woman beside me like my body had stopped listening to me. And then the light turned green. I still didn't move. And then a second later, the car behind me laid on the horn. And that snapped me out of it. I hit the gas and drove straight through the intersection. And as I pulled away, I looked in the rearview mirror. Her car was still sitting there in the lane at the green light, not moving. And she was still clawing at her throat, still screaming, and still repeating my name. Anyway, good luck sleeping tonight.
I got a message recently from a woman named Crystal, and she wasn't sharing this to share a scary story for entertainment. She reached out because she's genuinely struggling, and she wanted to put this out there in hopes that somebody might offer some help, some kind of answer, or maybe even just somebody who understands what she's living through. So I'd like to ask that at the end of this, if you have any thoughts or any comments, anything at all that you would like to share, please drop them in. I am sure she'll be looking. And this goes without saying, please be respectful. Crystal's husband has been a tattoo artist for 32 years, and back in the 90s, he owned one of the first shops ever in their town, but then he did end up losing it to addiction. They have been married for 20 years, and in all of this time, it has always been his dream to open up a new shop of his own. The town that they lived in had been filled with tattoo shops, so they started looking in the next town over. One day when Crystal's husband was doing some tattoos, she went to go look at a building by herself just to see if opening a shop was even a real possibility. Crystal says that the moment she laid eyes on the building, it was as though there were a spell cast over it. She said she didn't really notice the old furnishings. All she saw was the charm and was instantly completely convinced that they just had to have this. She said they didn't even really have the money to open up a shop. So she even went ahead to pre-sell tattoo packages just to do anything they could to make it work. She just wanted this building so badly. She said it was actually 3 buildings put together. One of them even happened to have been a bar at one point with an apartment sitting right above it. And the landlord said that they could do anything they wanted with this place as long as they left the bar untouched. So they ended up deciding to build a social media bar in the shop instead. They had big plans. They were all in. Her husband even joked that they should just sell their house and move into the apartment above the shop. And Crystal said no to that one. So they got the keys and started working on the building. Now, here is something Crystal told me that is important. She mentions that she actually comes from a long line of witches, and her intuition is spot on. So she says almost immediately something felt really off to her, but she just kept pushing it aside, and they just kept on pushing forward and kept working. So now, unfortunately, her husband, he became obsessed, like not in a good way. She said at one point he had worked 65 days straight, sometimes even going 48 hours at a time without sleep. And early on, Crystal said that she did see that he was being a little bit off, but she kept excusing it. She just figured it was the workload. He's got to be exhausted until they opened. Prior to opening, other than that initial weird vibe, they didn't really see or sense any presences of anything. And then it all took a turn. So it started by them hearing odd sounds, and they kind of brushed it off thinking, well, maybe the building has an old ghost, as sometimes they do. But then Crystal started feeling something, and that was not good. She would start to sense it in the room with her, and all the hairs on her arms would stand on end, and she would get chills. And then she started catching glimpses of it in the mirror, just at the corner of her eye. And then the employees started seeing the ghosts too. All kinds of people inside that building, kids, women, men, everybody was reporting that they were seeing things. But Crystal said what they were seeing was harmless. What she was seeing was different. It was evil. And then she started to dream about it. And it got to the point where she was seeing this evil thing fully in her dream. She said at that point, nobody else experienced anything close to what she was going through. People even started thinking she was crazy. And then one night, everything changed. So they got home one night and Crystal told her husband she could feel this in her home. It was real as anything she had ever felt before. And then they went to bed anyway. Her husband was exhausted from the relentless work schedule, so they were sleeping within 2 minutes. So within 5 minutes of him falling asleep, he began to have a violent dream. It was absolutely terrifying. He was thrashing around and screaming, "No, no," over and over again. And Crystal kept on trying to wake him up. She was shaking him, screaming his name. And she said it took her several minutes to get him to wake up. And when he finally did wake up, he was in a panic and he looked her dead in the eyes and he said, "That demon was going to get you." But he then said, but he stopped it. And strangely enough, she said after that night, she never saw it again. And she rarely feels anything anymore, as though he really did stop it. But at what cost? Everything changed. So her husband rented that apartment above the shop behind her back so that the two of them could stay there sometime. And he became even more obsessed with the building. And the worst part was, she said he became somebody that she did not recognize anymore. For 20 years, Crystal says that he had been the kindest man she had ever known. And now he was mean, truly mean. He even went as far as telling her he'd choose the shop over her. She said that is not who he has ever been, not in 20 years of marriage. Crystal says that she truly believes that this shop is a portal for spirits and demons. And she truly believes that whatever was in there took her husband instead of her. She said he'll be sitting at home and just say, "The ghost's on the camera." And then when you pull up the shop footage, sure enough, you can see it right there on camera. And this is for sure when no other living person is there. Crystal says at this point she's desperate. She wants to find someone who can see demons and have them take a look at him. She says she does not know what to do anymore and it just keeps getting worse and worse. She also says he would never agree to see a priest or anything else that might help. So let Crystal know in the comments. Can you relate to this in any way? Do you have any advice or suggestions? Anything? What could she try next? I really do feel for you, girl, and thank you for sharing your story. If you guys have any stories of your own, also don't forget to share them. And if you're new here, you gotta follow for more creepy story time.
This story is fucking crazy. This is an extreme haunting. It's called the Union Screaming House. Ooh, creepy. A little bit about Stephen. He married at 23 and became a father shortly after. His wife came to Stephen and said she was leaving them. Not him, them. Him and their 3 kids. Yeah. Jesus. She said it's not because she wanted to divorce him, it's because she wanted to divorce their children. This is an ad that pops up for the house. 3-bedroom house for rent in Union, full in-town living, near most schools and the city park. Perfect for families, perfect for children. The right house at the right price for the right family. If interested, please contact. So at this time, Lydia was 12, Michael was 11, and Matthew was around 9. Stephen and Lydia, his daughter, they went together to meet the house owner, Mr. Winters, who Stephen described as one of the strangest people he had ever seen. The house was built in the 1930s. The basement had what was called a butcher shower. So a butcher shower is where men would shower after they had slaughtered hogs. Right away, they noticed that the house was pretty cold.
Red flag number 1.
They just thought that the AC was really good at first.
Wrong.
Mr. Winters says several strange things about the house throughout the course of the story, but one of the things starts with him asking if Stephen understands the responsibility that comes with living in an old house.
Maybe he means like, you gotta keep an eye on things and let me know. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
But obviously what he's meaning is this house is haunted AF, so that's now your responsibility.
The night after viewing the house, Stephen wakes up to his son Matthew screaming. That's the youngest son.
My God.
God. Matthew comes running into Steven's room and frantically tells him that there's a man in his room. Steven then lets Matthew get into Steven's bed because he's scared, and Steven goes to get water from the kitchen. When he turns the light off in the hallway, he sees the shadow of a man run by.
Oh my God.
But he just laughs to himself and he's like, oh my God, my son's getting to my head. Later that night, he winds up having a really creepy nightmare. It kind of also turns into a sleep paralysis episode. He wakes up in his room in the dream and hears a raspy voice say,
"Look at me.
The voice says it again, more insistently, and then says,
See me."
Steven pushes himself up on his elbows and asks, who's there? No answer. He asks again, no answer. He lays back down, thinking he was just hearing things, and closes his eyes, ready to go back to sleep. Then he feels an immediate, immense pressure on his chest, which this is typical for sleep paralysis. It felt like something was leaning on him, pushing him down into the bed and pinning him to it.
Ew.
He couldn't move, and it was so dark he couldn't see anything. A voice whispers in his ear,
"You know you want to look at me."
Steven could also smell a foul stench.
Ew.
Steven's trying to move, but he can't. And he whispers, please, God. And the voice replies,
"God isn't here. God doesn't exist. You've said so yourself, haven't you?"
The pressure in his chest becomes stronger, and the voice commands again.
"Look at me."
At this point, Steven does see something.
Oh my God.
He can see the white of its eyes glowing in the dark. The more Steven tries to struggle to get up, the more the pressure pushes him into the bed. He then sees white, ghostly hands right before they wrap around his neck. The voice then said,
"God isn't here. It's just..."
Then the voice pauses, revealing its face to Steven, which basically looks like a possessed Christ. And then it finishes its sentence as says,
"Me.
So
God isn't here. It's just me."
Ew. Then Steven wakes up and sits up in bed, totally freaked out. Mr. Winter calls Steven about a week later and tells him that they got the house. I also want to say about this story that I did some serious digging after I read this book to learn about the person who owns this house. So like there is stuff that I'm going to be unveiling in this episode that is crazy.
Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not wishing for this to happen, but if my grandpa decided to leave this life, then he better stay over there in hell, heaven, whatever, because I don't want to experience the terrifying thing that happened in this video. It all started when a lady decided to visit an abandoned place because she felt that something was wrong with it. Now, it's important to know that this place used to be for her grandpa who passed away in this exact same house. She started by filming this window over here because she and the person next to her felt that something was going on over here, but they were not sure. That was until they saw something moving over here. As you can see, it looked like a head, you know, a person in general. So they both freaked out and decided to leave, but the story is not over because they wanted to know who is this person staying in their grandpa's abandoned house. After a while, the lady decided to post a picture of her grandpa, you know, to let us see what he used to look like. And then she proceeded to show us this. What you see right now, I don't know if you noticed it, but this right here is a face. And she got this when she really zoomed in on the footage that she had. And please, please tell me I'm not the only one seeing this. Look, I might be losing it. I really might be. But this right here, to me, it looks exactly like her grandpa.
The police found evidence that someone was living in my trunk. Welcome to the Creepy Cozy Cottage where creepy and cozy meet. So grab a blanket and get cozy because we're about to read a creepy story. I still check my rear view mirror every 5 minutes, even when I'm parked in my own driveway. It's been months, but the smell of damp earth and rotting meat still haunts me. I'm writing this down because if I don't, the weight of the secret will eat me alive. Someone was living in my trunk, and to this day, I don't know how they got in. That night in November, up in northern Wisconsin, the snow was coming down so hard, I could barely see the edges of the road in front of my old Ford. I was heading home to Duluth after a long business trip, and I was so exhausted. I was struggling just to keep my eyes open. The heater was blasting, but the cold kept creeping in through the worn-out car doors. After driving for over 2 hours, I heard a faint tapping sound coming from the back seat. I glanced in the rearview mirror quickly. I didn't see anything strange, but the child seat, the one I'd kept since my niece's visit in the summer, looked like it had shifted a few inches. I convinced myself that the car had just hit a patch of ice.
Minutes later, a strange smell filled the car. It was a mix of damp earth and rotting meat. A wave of unease washed over me, so I pulled over to the side of the road to check things out. Then I stepped out. The cold wind hit me like a wall. I shone my phone's flashlight around the car. Nothing. But then I noticed fresh footprints in the snow near the trunk. The wind was already blurring them, but it looked like someone had been standing there just moments ago. I rushed back into the car and locked the doors. When I turned the key, the dashboard lights dimmed, then flickered back on. The battery was old, so I didn't think much of it, but what really chilled me was a soft metallic click from the back, like someone had just moved something inside the trunk. I tried to ignore it and kept driving, but the feeling that I wasn't alone was growing. I kept checking the rearview mirror. At one point, I could have sworn something moved in the back seat, but when I turned around, nothing. Just the dancing shadows cast by the headlights of distant cars and the falling snow. About 10 minutes later, I heard a faint rustling. It sounded just like someone shifting their weight. A shiver raced down my spine. I turned off the radio and silence filled the car. That's when I heard it again. This time, it was clearer. It was coming from the trunk. I pulled over immediately. I opened the door, stepped out with my phone light, and walked over to the trunk. I was terrified to open it, but curiosity and fear pushed me. I lifted the latch. I didn't find a person or an animal, just an old metal toolbox that had slid around, banging against the sides with every turn. I let out a breath of relief for a moment, but that relief, it didn't last. Right on top of the toolbox, I found an old blanket. I didn't remember putting it there. It was damp, like someone had been using it. I stared at it for a few seconds before slamming the trunk shut and jumping back into the car. My fatigue was really messing with my head now, so I decided to stop first at a gas station that I could find. About 20 minutes later, I pulled up in an old station off Highway 2. The lights were on, but the parking lot was completely empty. I walked inside, shivering from the cold and the nerves. The place was uncomfortably quiet. I called out for the attendant, but no one answered. Wandered past the shelves until I reached the back office. There, I found a coffee cup, still warm. A landline phone was off the hook, and a chair was overturned on the floor. My stomach sank. It was clear someone had left in a hurry, very recently. I pulled on my phone to call the police, but the signal was dead. As I was trying to find a bar, I heard the front door of the station open slowly. I spun around. I didn't see anyone, but fresh, wet snow tracks were leading from the entrance into the store. My breathing got fast, shallow. Logic was gone. I started backing up until I hit the glass drink cooler. That's when I saw it. In the reflection of the glass, there wasn't anyone standing behind me, but there was a man, a real man, standing between the aisles at the back of the store, watching me in silence. I hadn't heard him enter. I hadn't seen him when I turned towards the door. He was just standing there. His clothes were soaked with snow. His face was pale, and his eyes were locked onto mine, without blinking. I screamed at him, asked him who he was, but he didn't answer. Then he started to walk towards me, slowly. I bolted for the door. I ran out into the blizzard, and I didn't stop running until I hit the main road, where a snowplow spotted me and pulled over. The next morning, the police went back to the station with me. They found footprints both inside and outside the building, but they never found anyone. One of the officers told me that the station had been broken into several times over the past few weeks by an unknown man who had been hiding in abandoned buildings during the storms. They didn't know if it was the same man I saw, but for me, I can't get one thing out of my head. When the police opened my trunk to check it again, they found that old blanket, and it had fresh food scraps inside and a water bottle that was half empty. Someone had been inside my car at some point that night, and to this day, I don't know when they got in or when they got out. Let me know what you thought of that story, and if you have any scary stories of your own you'd like me to read, just send me a DM.
What would happen if you responded to a mimic? Now, when we hear about these encounters with mimics, there is often this invitation to let them in, to open the door, or to follow. But what would happen if you actually did? Now, there was this girl named Jill from South Carolina. She was driving home one night at 1 a.m., coming back from work. When she goes inside her house, all the lights are off. Her mom is upstairs asleep. Well, as she walks through the living room, she hears her mother's voice say, "Hello, Jill." And she goes, "Mom, why are you up so late?" And all she hears is, "Hello, Jill." She goes, "Okay, Mom, like, why is all the lights off and why are you in the kitchen?" And she just responds, "Hello, Jill." So she was kind of freaked out. I was like, okay, is something wrong with my mom? She flips the lights on and there's no one there. And as she goes upstairs to her mom's bedroom, she sees that her door is closed. When she opens it, she sees that her mom is in bed, sound asleep. So she starts trying to rationalize, okay, maybe my mom was talking in her sleep. So she just ignores it. Well, a couple days later, she said she was sitting in her bed, in her bedroom, when she sees her mom walk by. And she says, "Hey, Mom, can you go downstairs and grab me a bag of chips?" But her mom doesn't respond. So she goes to the door, she looks out the hallway. Her mom is not there. She is not even at the house. A few days after this, she is once again in her bedroom. And she hears her mom calling for her, telling her to come downstairs. So she gets ready to go down to the hallway and she remembers, wait a second, my mom is not home. So she stays in her bedroom until her mom gets there. And finally, a couple days after this, she is coming home from a friend's house. And as she gets out of her car, she notices her mom is standing on the side of the house with her face turned. And she goes, "Mom, are you okay? Like, what are you doing outside?" And she hears, "Hello, Jill." She's like, "Mom?" And she's like, "Come with me into the woods." And she's like, what do you mean?" And she goes, "Come with me in the backyard to the woods." And she's kind of like, that's not my mom. She runs inside the house, she closes the door, and she sees her mom is there in the kitchen. So she goes to her mom and she starts crying and she says, "There's something that's following me and it's pretending to be you." And her mom's just kind of like, "Honey, it's okay. Like, there's nothing going on. Like, you're just stressing yourself out. It'll be okay." But she was insistent, "Mom, something is pretending to be you." Well, many months pass and she stops having these encounters. But then one night she gets a call from her mom. And her mom is like, "Hey, honey, I heard you calling me to go down into the basement. But I'm in the bathroom right now. I'll be down, in like 10 minutes. And she's like, "No, Mom, do not go down there. Do not go into the basement. That is not me. I am not at home." And her mom's like, "What are you talking about? Like, are you playing jokes with me?" And she's like, "No, Mom, I am not home." And her mom didn't believe her. She thought she was making it up. Well, a week later, she finds that her mother had passed away. And she felt like whatever was pretending to be her mother and then pretended to be her had something to do with it. And did her mom respond to this mimic? Have you ever heard someone calling your name when there wasn't anyone around? Now, I believe more people have paranormal encounters than they'd like to admit, but we don't like to acknowledge it. Now, there was this girl named Kelly. Kelly lived in Salem, Massachusetts, in this very old colonial home. Now, she said there was this basement that looked more like a cellar, and she did not like to go down there. It always creeped her out. But her washer and dryer were down there. Now, at this period of time, she was living with her mother. And she said sometimes when her mom would be gone and she'd have to go downstairs and do laundry, she would get the feeling like she was being watched. Well, she said one day she was home alone and she took a basket of clothes down to the basement. She said she had her 2 dogs with her who were always by her side and they never left her. But this particular day, as she's putting her clothes in the washer, she said the dogs caught wind of something and they took off running up the basement stairs like they were scared of something. And she said as she sat there, she began to get the feeling like someone was watching her. So she made her way to the stairs and she started to walk up. She gets about to the halfway point when she hears her mom say, "Kelly, Kelly, Kelly." But she knew her mom wasn't home. So she made her way to the top of the stairs and she closed the basement door. And she told herself, "I am not going down in that basement anymore." So she started to do her laundry at her friend's house. And many months passed and she sort of forgot about this encounter down the basement. But she said one weekend her mom had went on a work trip and she was home alone. Well, she was up in her bedroom asleep. She said she happened to wake up to the sound of her mom calling her. "Kelly, Kelly, Kelly, Kelly." So she said she got up out of bed, but she was still, half asleep to realize that her mom wasn't home. So as she gets up out of the bed and she goes into the hallway, she realizes it's coming from downstairs. So she walks to the stairs, she goes to the first floor, and she said that's when she hears the sound behind her. Kelly! So she turns around, she looks, and she can see the basement door is wide open. The sound of her mom's voice is coming from downstairs in the basement. And that's when it occurs to her, wait a second, my mom is on a work trip. And as she looks at the basement door, which is wide open, she said she sees a pair of eyes looking at her. So she runs out of the house and she starts getting in her car. And she could see the windows to the basement. The light was going off and on continuously, like there was someone down there. She said she never returned to that house again. And her mom still lives there to this day, but she claims nothing happens. Idaho's one of those strange places that people don't really go to. You know, it's up there, situated in the Pacific Northwest. Most people just drive through the northern portion of the state. And you almost kind of forget that that state even exists. In the southern portion of Idaho, it's this very remote area, and a lot of strange things occur here. Now, there's a place known as the Owyhee Mountains, and the Native Americans have this legend about something they call the sheep snatchers. Now, the sheep snatchers, they believed, were this lost tribe that lived up in the mountains. They were supposedly cannibals, and from time to time, when they were very hungry, it said that they would come down from the mountains and they would steal livestock from some of the local tribes. And there was even a story back in the 1800s. These 5 hunters, they go into the Owyhee Mountains and they never returned. So their family was worried about them. They formed a search party. They end up finding them up in the mountains in this small cabin that's locked from the inside. The windows are locked. And they find these 5 men, all deceased, with their heads having been completely smashed. There have been stories of sheep herders or sheep farmers who have seen these men come down from the mountains that look like very tall men wearing the skeleton of a sheep's head or a sheep's skull. And they come down, they steal sheep, they throw them over their shoulders, and they carry them back up the mountain. Do you have any strange stories from Idaho?
That's not a silly question. You asked, why don't you go straight to a heart specialist and request a test you wonder why the rest of the hospital personnel haven't done? That's what I've been trying to do for years, honey. Here in North Carolina, if you don't have money or insurance, if you don't come in with that Medicaid or Blue Cross Blue Shields, they're putting your ass on the back burner because they can't make thousands of dollars off you like they can them. I have cried in these people's office. I have begged them for testing. I have begged them for things. And nope, you're young. You're not dying. You don't have the money. It's always something. Today was the first time in years that I finally got to see a heart specialist. And he tells me that my primary doctor forgot to send over my lab work. Of course, that's the kind of stuff that always happens to me, right? He asked, when she did your blood work, did she find anything wrong with your thyroids? I said, she told me no. The only thing she found was a urinary tract infection in which she wrote infection medicine for it. I've had my thyroid tested 3 times in the last couple of years, and the doctors swear they can't find nothing wrong with my thyroid, but that's if they even did the test, because I found out the first time they didn't even do it. Specialist said he just read my EKG that my primary doctor did a month ago, and it showed signs of bradytachycardia, and that my heart was only beating 55 beats per minute. So he did an EKG today and took my blood pressure, and his showed that I had sinus tachycardia and my heart was beating 102 beats per minute. Blood pressure is still normal in both visits. He tells me that getting a stress test is very expensive. I said, I will sell all my stuff, I'll pawn all my stuff, whatever it takes, I'll pay for the stress test. Let's just get it done. He said, we'll get that done either way, but let's do the CAT scan done because it's cheaper. But you have to call and make that appointment yourself. So I had to call another place, which is in Leland, and schedule that visit, but they can't get me in until July 22nd, a month from now. And then after that, they'll schedule the stress test, which will probably be 2 more fucking months from now, right? He tells me they're going to send me a monitor in the mail so they can monitor my heart for 3 days, and then I'll put it in the mail and send it back to them. Well, one doctor said she thought it was serious, but now the specialist today, no, he thinks it's just electrical, but he won't know until he finds out more information. But that's going to be months from now because everything's scheduled so far out. He says it happens in a lot of people for a lot of reasons, but I'm young and not showing serious signs right now, so he doesn't think it's going to kill me right now. He doesn't think I'm going to have a massive heart attack right now or anything. Even though all of a sudden it's been happening all day, every day for the last few weeks steady. They just won't listen to us, y'all. They won't listen, especially women. And what gets me, I love my partner, but he's male. When he goes to the doctor, if he's got so much as a flare-up in his butthole, they will send him to the hospital. They'll do testing, CAT scan, x-rays, blood work. They'll send him to a specialist, put him on the hospital payment plan. They'll do whatever it takes. But when I go, it's, well, you're not dying, you're young, it seems normal right now. We're going to schedule you this and that months from now, and we'll see what happens. And I'm not saying they do that for all men. I know it's not like that for everyone. My neighbors, they have Medicaid, and anytime they go, they get sent straight to the hospital, straight into the specialist. They get tested, CAT scans, x-rays, anything they need done. If y'all could hear the way these people talk to me like I'm fucking stupid, it would blow your mind. It's just very discouraging, and it makes me not even want to care anymore. I'm so tired of being put on the back burner. I'm so tired of these people not believing me. I had high hopes today because I heard so many good things about this place specifically, dealing with cash-paying patients and how wonderful they are. And for this to happen again, Lord, let me calm down for a minute, because I'm telling you, I'm about to snap. On top of everything, to find out that my primary doctor didn't even send my lab work after me sitting in her office spilling my guts to her about how scared I am and how this is getting worse and I just want to get help and I'm trying to live better, exercising and blah, blah, blah. And for her to not send my lab results to a specialist that I've been waiting to see. I did not want this video to be this long, and I'm sorry to have been on you. Heart problems run in my family. This is what my mother and my grandmother died from. Heart problems. Along with cancer, but mainly heart problems. My mama's left arm swelled up as big as a man's arm right before she passed away. She had a heart attack, all hit so quick, and then she was gone. My grandma had heart problems, and then she was gone. I know the warning signs. It's here. It's happening. So I'm trying to jump on this earlier. I'm 41. I can't even take care of myself because of this. A while back, one doctor told me, you need to keep exercising. I said, how? I can't even power walk around the house without my heart skipping beats or going into an arrhythmia. How do you expect me to exercise? So I'm on here begging for help. If anyone knows where to go, who to talk to, what specialists will see people that don't have insurance, anything, any suggestions would be greatly appreciated. See, I'm not going to get it out here. And women are not lying when they say health professionals will not listen to us. They truly won't. But thank you for taking the time to comment and actually caring about me and asking, because you don't know how much it means to me that someone cares. Thank you. Honestly, y'all care and ask more questions than what the health professionals do. That is no lie.
This is a sleepover that took place when my friend and I were in high school, and it is one sleepover on a night that I will never ever forget. It was a really nice summer night. My friend and I, my friend's name is Charlotte, we wanted to have a sleepover because we always wanted to have sleepovers, and we decided to do it at my house because I had a trampoline and we wanted to sleep on our trampoline at night. Here's some context about the house that I was living in at the time. So our house was surrounded by woods, and on one side of the house was a cornfield and then a highway. And when we moved into the house a couple years earlier, we were informed that a girl named Alyssa was actually unalived in the woods on the property. Anyways, while it was still light outside, we went and we set up our sleeping bags on the trampoline. We went inside, we had some dinner, everything was pretty normal. We were having a good time. As it got later, we got ready for bed. We went outside. The only light source we had was like a flickering flashlight. So we decided just to turn it off after we got into our sleeping bags, and we were just gonna chat, like talk to each other until we got tired. About 10 to 15 minutes into our chat, we heard a scream in the background, and it sounded like a little girl scream. We got spooked for sure, but we were just trying to lower it down in our heads, saying that it was just the neighbors or something like that. We continued our conversation trying to forget about it, but then more screaming happened, and then it was followed by a little girl's voice saying help. We were terrified. We waited for a break in the screaming, and then we went and made a run for it to the door. Unfortunately, the door was locked. All the doors in my house were locked. My parents decided to lock up for the night. So the best case scenario was to go back to the trampoline, hide in our sleeping bags, and wait until morning. As we were heading back to the trampoline, terrified, mind you, we noticed that the little voice saying help sounded like it was getting closer and closer. We practically jumped into the trampoline, zipped up our sleeping bags, and we sat and hid there for a minute. And all you could hear after we zipped it up was silence, like completely silence. Everything stopped. For a couple minutes, my friend Charlotte was sound asleep, so I felt like I was left awake. I couldn't sleep. I was so scared. About an hour into this, I heard sirens, and they sounded like they were getting closer and closer to my house. You could peek up and you could see just barely over my backyard the lights from the cars. There was 3 police cars, and they actually were parked right down the road from me, and they gradually made it into my backyard with their flashlights. Obviously, I was too scared to move or do anything, so I just kind of watched as they walked into the woods. I did feel a comfort after they showed up, and I was able to fall asleep after that. Charlotte slept through all of this. Eventually, when we woke up in the morning, I explained everything that had happened, and we felt brave enough to go into the woods to check out what happened because the police were there. And so we walked into the woods, and obviously they had their caution tape around this area of trees, and in the middle you could actually see a human imprint in the leaves. It scared us for sure, but we were trying not to assume the worst. So we go and head back to the trampoline. We're gonna try to clean up our sleeping bags and whatnot. My friend Charlotte actually trips over what found out to be like a heavy duty flashlight, and it had like the local police's names on it, and so we went to go return the flashlight eventually. Really, we just wanted to find out what happened that night. We gave them the address of my house, and they let us know that they didn't send anybody to that area recently. They recognized the address because of the case of Alyssa the few years back, but other than that, they said that nobody's been out to that area. So they have no idea how their flashlight got to where it was. Nobody knew how the flashlight got there. To this day, neither of us can explain what happened that night. So if you guys have any theories or thoughts about this, feel free to put it in the comments.
On Friday the 13th of August 2010, I became a believer in the paranormal. If you're new here, my name is Duck. I talk about the paranormal, the spooky, and horror. I'm just absolutely obsessed with it, and I'm about to tell you the story of the first time I was ever attacked by a spirit at a haunted location. I was 19 years old, and a group of friends and I decided that for Friday the 13th, we were going to celebrate by going up to the Beechworth ghost tours. There is an asylum in Beechworth called Mayday Hills that I've spoken about in some earlier videos and on some of my lives. This would be the first time out of the many times since that I've visited that I was actually going to see the place in person. While we were getting ready for the event, I decided that I was going to be a 19-year-old edgelord and wear a red mini dress. For those of you that aren't aware, wearing red in public as an unchaperoned or unmarried woman was a really quick and easy way to get yourself put in an asylum for an undetermined amount of time. When we arrived to check in and give our tickets over to the tour guide looked me up and down and said, "Are you sure that you don't want to put on a jacket or change?" I didn't think much of this at the time, and I really wish that I had. Being that I was being my edgy and annoying self, I went back to the car and I grabbed a red cardigan. One of the rooms that we visited was Olivine. Olivine was the criminally insane men's ward at the time. It housed some of the most violent and insane criminals of the time. One of those criminals was a man by the name of Ted, who I spoke about in this week's 60-second ghost story. Ted was put into Mayday Hills by the state after murdering his barber. He killed the barber because he was given a haircut that he didn't like. Ted was known to have kept his nails long, his hair long, and to have abhorrent personal hygiene. So, of course, I decided when we went into that room that I was going to taunt Ted. I entered the small room. It was probably only a 2x2 meter room with a little bed and a sink off to the side. It was really dingy, and being August, it was quite cold. I walk into the room and I start snapping photos. While I'm snapping these photos, I say, "Geez, Ted, no wonder you smelled so bad. I don't see a shower or an ensuite in here anywhere." As I turn to leave the room, I feel an overwhelming sense of panic, followed by a hot sensation on my back. I go running out of the room. The rest of the tour had kept going. My friends came back to check on me. As I had stayed back in the room by myself, there was no way anything could have prepared me for what was going to turn up on my back. After explaining to the tour guide what I had experienced in Ted's room, she asked me if I wouldn't mind taking off my jacket. I took my jacket off. The mini dress that I was wearing was backless, and down the back were 5 long scratch marks that stretched from the back of my neck all the way down to the small of my back. I had been alone in the room at the time. I was so creeped out that I refused to return to the tour. I went back to the Bijou Theatre and I sat there and waited for my friends to finish the tour. I eventually went back to Mayday Hills 19 more times over the last 15 years, and I apologized to Ted for provoking him. But I, from that moment, believed that the paranormal was not just something that was cool that I could read about and talk about. It was something that could actually reach out and touch me. So what about you guys? What changed your mind about the paranormal? Tell me the story that made you a believer.
When it comes to skinwalkers, New Mexico is number 1. Then you have Arizona, and third, I would say, is Texas. Now, more specifically, the western region of Texas has a significant number of skinwalker sightings. This specific story takes place outside of Odessa, Texas, right near the New Mexico border. There was this rancher named Roy. Roy purchased this 1,000-acre ranch, and when he first moves onto the property, he said he was confronted by this Native American man. And he said this man told him that on your property are these mounds. And he said, those are burial mounds. They're sacred to my people. Whatever you do, do not disturb them. He said, use all of the land, but leave those mounds alone. So Roy said, okay, whatever, I'm not anticipating touching them even. So after a year of Roy living on this ranch, he needed to expand and he needed to grow his ranch. So he started looking into this area where the mounds were. And one day he brings his tractor out there and gets ready to kind of clear this land. Well, as he started up his tractor and started to go towards the mound, he said he started to hear what sounded almost like Native American music and chants. And he said the closer he got to these mounds, the louder it got. And then finally, he said he heard a really loud, hey. And when he looked over out behind the mounds, he said there was a Native American man standing there. And he had these glowing eyes. And he was there for a brief second, and then he just disappeared. So Roy was like, okay, this is weird, like maybe I need to get some sleep. So he goes back to his house and he lays down. Well, later that night, he awakes to just kind of like a very stillness in the air. And he said that's when he heard very clearly something say, get out of here now. And a second time he hears it, get out of here now. And a third time, get out of here now. So he jumps up out of bed and he goes all around his house. He cannot find anyone. And he has no idea where this sound is coming from. And that's when he hears it a fourth time. And he goes over to his window in the bedroom. And when he looks out, he said he's seen this owl sitting up in the tree. And as he looked directly at this owl, it said, get out of here now. And then he said it flew off into the tree, up into the sky. So a couple weeks pass, and he's like, you know what? I got to clear that field. Like, I got to take out those mounds and expand the ranch. So he goes out there again with his tractor. And as he begins to start clearing these mounds, he said that's when he's seen this pack of coyotes. And they started coming closer and closer towards him. And he noticed that their eyes were glowing. And he said they would not let him get anywhere near these mounds. And that scared him. So much so that he went back to the house and said, I will never touch those mounds again. And still to this day, those mounds sit there untouched.
Let's read a scary story about a mimic. This one was sent in by an anonymous viewer. This is my story about a mimic. This is still kind of happening, but it has been a while since I actually saw it. In 2024, my kids and I had to move. I had 3 daughters, 17, 13, and 8. I don't want to use their real names, so you can call them J, M, and B. We couldn't do anything to prevent this move, so I took the first apartment that would accept me so we wouldn't be homeless. This new apartment is in a rural town. None of us liked it, but whatever. We moved in March 24th, and by the end of summer, it was my oldest, Jay, and I started hearing each other's voices from the other rooms. At first, we dismissed it. In like August, I saw Jay, but it wasn't Jay. I was home alone and walked into my bedroom and saw Jay's back to me sitting in the kitchen table. Jay was an hour away with her dad at the time because we were fighting. It clicked once I got into my bedroom that Jay wasn't home and what I saw wasn't her. I felt sick and scared. I just stayed in my room and tried to forget about what I saw. I told Jay once she came back home. After that, things got worse. I would constantly hear Jay calling for me, and Jay started to hear me when she knew I wasn't home. A few months later was the worst and scariest moment for me. Jay went to a friend's house later in the night. My ex had moved in with us temporarily, and he was sleeping in M's room with her this night. I was in my room and dozed off, and I woke up to Jay in my doorway. I told her I was having a hard time sleeping and asked if she would just come sit next to me until I would fall asleep. I had really bad dreams every time I dozed off, and Jay agreed. Jay walked into the room and sat at the foot of my bed and got on her phone. I started to doze off, and all of a sudden I felt horrible pain in my back, like someone was pushing it in the middle of my back with their fist. I woke up screaming and my back was sore to the touch. Jay came running into my room asking if I was okay. I was confused because Jay was just at the foot of my bed, so why was she coming from the other room? I started crying and screaming, "Why are you coming from the other room? You were supposed to stay in here with me." Jay looked so confused. She said, Mom, I was in the bathroom. I just got home a few minutes ago. Check the camera. I have a camera at our door and I checked it, and Jay had been home less than 5 minutes. I lost it. I started bawling. I told Jay how I saw her and asked her to come into my room so I could fall asleep, and she looked so scared. That wasn't really Jay sitting at the foot of my bed and talking to me. We decided the living room light must always stay on. It seemed like things were worse when our living room light was off. At this point, my ex woke up from all the commotion, and Jay and I told him everything. He mocked us and said we were losing it. He didn't believe us until a week later. Jay and I went to a concert 2 hours away. Em was at the neighbor's house playing, and my ex was in my apartment alone, with the living room light off, as it was starting to get dark outside. My ex said he was in the kitchen and got this weird feeling, and he got goosebumps from his legs all the way up to his body. He then heard my voice say, "You don't believe me? I will show you." He looked at the time, and we had been gone for well over an hour. He walked into the living room and got a horrible feeling. He quickly flipped the light on and looked around. Obviously, he didn't see me there. He told me the story the next day and said he finally believed me. He said it was the creepiest experience he'd ever had. Fast forward to like 3 or 4 months ago, Em had a friend over for the night, and they were in her bedroom, and I was lying down in the living room. Out of nowhere, there was this super loud and guttural growl. Em came into the living room and asked if I heard that. I told her to go back up to her room. She tried to ask me again, but I sternly told her to go to bed. I knew by this point that we shouldn't acknowledge it. The next day, I asked Em and her friend what they heard. They described it as a vicious dog growl, but scarier. I told them that I heard it too, but we have to ignore it. Em had been skeptical up until then. I apologized to her friend because I don't want her to be scared at our house. Since then, there has only been one time I saw something in Em's bedroom, and it looked like her sitting up in B's bed. Em was definitely sleeping, and B was not home, so I knew it was the mimic. I went to the bathroom and went back to my room. Since then, it has been quiet, and I am grateful, but sometimes I get a bad gut feeling. I wish I could just get rid of this thing, but my research says you really can't. We've all just learned how to ignore it. I can't imagine dealing with that. I would not be able to ignore it. Let me know what you think, and if you have any scary stories of your own you'd like me to read, just send me a DM.
Guys, I can keep saying is this place makes absolutely no sense. We're almost to the lion monolith, but look what I spot down below. We're getting closer. But there's so much that makes zero sense. Like all those cliff faces are completely cut off. This one's cut off. That one's cut off. That whole top of the mountain was sheared off, except to block. There's another altar there. I guarantee you these were altars. Either they had machines to cut stone, robots, or that's all they did the second they were born. That's all anyone did. I've been all over the world, and this is the most confusing place ever. Like even this little ledge was all carved out, and then there's a square. Like make it make sense. What's the purpose of that? And then a random stairway. Like what the heck?
This fits perfectly in with the disclosure that we have been experiencing these last few years, and how disclosure isn't one moment, but rather it's many different moments. It happens for individuals, it happens for groups. It's not one big thing. Now, it may be one day, but most likely it will continue to happen in little pieces like this. This is a perfect example. This was an ET group. They were here before we were. They were on Earth before humans were on Earth. Landing pads for their ships. Those first carvings he showed. Entryways. these ETs didn't necessarily need to physically have doorways because they were able to move in and out energetically. Their physical form was able to shift and change to enter spaces and exit spaces. Most of what you are seeing and experiencing from this is craft landing and the capability for a craft to land, for those to monitor it, manage it, even mechanics of it. So creating spaces for mechanical engineering to take place to make sure the crafts are working and functioning. This happened before humans embodied the earth. They use lasers to create what they want and what they need. All of this that you are looking at was set up in a way to make it easy for them to come in and to exit. They lived here, but they also traveled to other planets. This wasn't their only place. 7N2, there's a T, 436. If there's any planets or star systems with those numbers, call letters, they may not be in the exact order. These were very small beings. They are still in existence. Very small, very thin, purplish tone, purplish skin suits. They can handle heat. So the other planets they come from are similar to like a Mars feeling. They can handle heat. Purplish, blue, gray, medium to high vibration. They have since evacuated Earth when humans came on. They weren't able to find a camaraderie with them. Certain tribes, they're saying they were able to find camaraderie with, but once, Earth became more and more and more populated, humans were coming on with much lower vibrations and could not understand them, did not understand them. And these beings foresaw the potential of where humanity was to go, and they didn't want to be a part of that. And so they, like I keep hearing the word evacuated, disappeared themselves. But if you want to learn more about the disclosure that's taking place, you want to experience more of it, join us over on Patreon.
Might have known the story of real-life boogeyman.
Series of spooky stories except for its women's intuition. When I was first dating my now husband, I had a dream that I would drop him off at the airport for his trip and later find out that I was pregnant that same night. A week later, I dropped him off at the airport, went home and took a pregnancy test, and it was positive. Then with that same pregnancy, I had a dream that I was having a girl, and I found out the next week that it was a girl. You psychic girl. I always know if I'm going to see someone, and I know who the person is before I see them. A good example is one day I missed the bus to go to class. I was in a charter school, and they had classes at the college that we could take. I was walking to my class. It was only a mile from the school. As I was walking, I had a weird gut feeling that I was going to see my mom. 5 minutes later, I see two ladies walking towards me, and it ended up being my mom and her friend. I've had a lot of other weird things happen with my intuition. This is just the first story that comes to mind when I think about it. I had something happen earlier this year. My mom fell and broke her leg and ended up in the hospital. While she was away, I had to look after her 2.5-year-old German Shepherd, Loki. She was his everything, but I was working with him to have him better trained for her when she came home. 2 weeks after she fell, we had a terrible snowstorm with an ice sheet on top, January 25th. So we were both cooped up in the house. He was in his open crate in front of the TV to my left, and I was crocheting. About a half hour into my project, something told me on my right side to look to my left. At that same moment, he launched out of the crate and began aggressively attacking me and tore up my arms, lunged at my face and neck. That warning gave me enough time to stand up and take his attack better, scruff him and grab his collar to get him back in the crate. I'm still not sure what that was about, but I know that saved me from further injury, if not my life. I was home alone with him. Why would he do that? I was headed to work, 2-lane road, no turning lane. There was a sharp corner and then you go downhill. Something told me to slow down and pay extra attention. I would typically speed through that area. As soon as I started coming down the hill, I see a car waiting to turn from the opposite lane of traffic into a business. The car was completely stopped with turn signals on. A big dump truck comes flying behind the stopped car, slamming into it, causing it to hit the two cars in front of me. If I'd been any closer to the car in front of me, I also would have been hit. I thank my angels every day for protecting me. When I was 18 at a friend's house, it was nighttime outside and a car pulled up outside the house. We didn't know who it was and I got this sinking feeling in my gut, and then I heard this really loud bang. I looked around and no one else seemed to hear it. The person who had pulled up was a mutual friend's brother. Something kept telling me not to go outside. I don't know why I did. As soon as I stepped off the porch, gunshots started firing. I crouched on the porch by the screen door, and when I got inside, my phone had a bullet hole in it. It was 2 to 3 centimeters away from my head. If I had moved over even a little bit, I would have been shot in the head 2 days before my 19th birthday. Picture of the phone. I moved in a little bit closer so you could see it. That is scary. That is so scary. Cutting this one short because I'm tired. Come back for the next part.
As a funeral director, I sometimes hear about this theory of the 7-minute rule after death. So what exactly does that mean? Well, it's a common theory believed that the brain continues to have activity 7 minutes after death. So around 7 minutes after the heart has stopped beating. What exactly does this mean? Well, it's almost as though the brain is replaying a highlights reel. And it's showcasing all your best bits from life, all your loved ones that have gone before you, your current loved ones, children, husband, spouse, whoever it might be. And it's a final sort of blast that your brain has to make the final moments as pleasurable as possible, of reliving all the best bits and being ultimately surrounded inside your head by the people that you love. This is also referred to sometimes as a near-death experience, and this is where relatively the theory comes from, because people have been so close to death, they have had this life flashing before their very eyes and have been able to relay it when doctors have brought them back. Some people associate this along the paranormal realms and saying, you know, they've actually levitated away from their body, seen their body laying on a hospital bed, etc. Others see it as a flash of their lifespan, all the best bits, you know, coming before their eyes. Now, does the brain continue to have activity after 7 minutes? That's probably a complete myth. When the heart stops pumping blood to the brain, electrical activity can stop within a few minutes. Although it has been recognised, the brain can continue to survive for a maximum of 7 minutes. That being said, studies on dying patients using an EEG machine has recorded a large burst of electrical brain activity just as the person is about to pass away. It's referred to almost like an REM dream, a really intense dream that your body's experiencing. This is the only thing it can be compared to that we would come to understand. So it would appear the highlight reel is probably actually happening and is in fact true. However, when it's being recorded, it only happens for a few seconds, up to a minute at a very push. 7 minutes is likely a far stretch. However, we do get these experiences upon death. Maybe not all of us, but also you might hear of, you know, your loved one reaching out to relatives in the corner of the room as they're about to pass away, things like this. Again, it could all be in the brain that it's producing this serotonin burst so that your final moments are as pleasurable as they can be. Or perhaps it is a loved one coming back to see us. We don't know. All we can do is speculate, but I thought it was a really interesting topic to make a video on. And either side of the coin, it's a bit of peace of mind that when our loved ones are passing away, which of course I deal with all the time in my day-to-day job, those final seconds, if anything, might be euphoric.